VAR in football. It has been almost 4 years since it was introduced to the Premier League, but the debate rages on. Is it a good thing for football or is it a complete failure? We are going to debate that today and get into it. Roll the intro. Welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. First things first, do us a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. Takes 2 seconds and it is absolutely free. Today, as I said in the intro, VAR is the debate. We've had it a while in English football now. It's obviously taken over the world, slowly coming into different leagues. The question is it a good thing for football? Or does it just make things more complicated? Does it take away celebrations? Does it ruin the fan experience? We're going to get into that today. Reese, we'll come to you first. Let's talk positive. Why is VAR a good thing for football? Let's start on a positive note.
Yeah, I think it's good because it's the idea of getting decisions that need to be right are right. That chance to have a look back that referees have never had before. The game moves so fast, they don't know, it's easy to miss something. So it gives you that chance to pick it up. I think building from that, I think it's clamping down on players perhaps performing quite dirty. When like back then, you get an elbow and nobody sees the elbow. Now it's all picked up. Now you can be red carded for that. I think that's good. And I think it's clamping down on perhaps, again, the dark side of football. I think, it's showing signs that it will. I think teams probably can't get away with as much probably cheating as much anymore as they can. Yes, they seem to have adopted that for time wasting, but I think that will evolve and address that issue another time. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's got most of the decisions right. I think it's something like 97%, something like that. Don't quote me on that. But I think it's something that's very, very effective. And I think it changes the game forward, regardless of how upset people might be.
Jamie, let's talk good things.
Yeah, really, I think like what Reece is saying, it's VAR is there to just implement the rules while sort of the refs can't see everything is pretty much what is the sort of basis of it, and they can't. You've got three people on a pitch, not all three of them can get every decision right from their eyesight alone, and it was getting more and more there's more and more stuff being said. Refs are useless. I think we've all probably said that in the past, and we will probably continue to do so. But it's something that should help them, should aid them, because there's things to look back on, and at the moment it's on the big decisions. So red card, penalties, goals, offsides. Well, offsides leading to goals. It's not trying to take it completely away from the refs. It's there to aid them. It's not like an AI takeover as sort of people are fearing with things like ChatGPT, really. So I think it's sort of the overall premise of it is sort of the right thing for football, because you're seeing it in cricket. You've seen it in cricket for years with like Hawkeye, the review system. It's just sort of things that still can be improved on it, but overall it should be helping the decision to be right. And if Reese's percentage that he's probably plucked from thin air is right, it's showing that it is helping the game overall.
Yeah, I think regardless of the exact numbers anyway, it's fairly obvious that without a shadow of a doubt, introducing VAR will improve or increase the percentage of correct decisions. So I think we're looking at it statistically, it is 100% a game changer. I think it's slightly different, but obviously goal line technology is a bit more cut and dry. But that has been sort of a phenomenal success because it's almost undisputable. And although VAR is, and we'll get into it later, but VAR it's harder to disagree with goal line technology. Like that is cut and dry. I guess the challenge with VAR is you're always going to have some degree of human decision. But if you're ultimately giving eyes on stuff that the referees have missed, and instead of one person, on a field with 50,000 people potentially calling him a, what, he's naturally going to make mistakes. So ultimately having, 3 or 4 people in a VAR booth supporting him definitely is good. I think in terms of like how it could evolve, Well, let's talk about the negative first as well, because it's important that we can't just sit here and sound like FIFA and say it's all great, it's all brilliant. Why could it be a bad thing? And what are the downsides we've seen so far? I mean, I'll chuck one out there: the whole celebration situation. Like, how many times have we now seen with VAR, fans celebrating or players reluctant to celebrate? Like, it's just that's the side of the game that it poses a threat to, in my opinion. And I guess the question is it potentially ruining the fan experience?
It it does do that though. That unfortunately that is one of the sort of side effects of it, because I remember if you looked at John Stones' goal against Arsenal this year, scored the header, was given offside initially, and then VAR's created it to be to the right decision. Now in the past it would have been ruled out, so actually it's a benefit there. But I've also seen it where I think we had a goal. I think it's like Laporte scored against Spurs in like the 92nd minute, and then it was given. Sort of City fans have celebrated, scored, and then it's been disallowed for VAR after about 4 or 5 minutes of waiting. So it's kind of like it can take it away, because there is still, every time you score, you've still got something in the back of your mind going, is VAR going to cancel this out? And it's happening for every single goal. And I've even had it with absolute clear cut goals. Like, there could be nothing wrong, but you're just like, did something happen about 3 or 4 minutes ago that they're going to pull it back for? So that's where I feel like it can affect the sort of fan experience, even the celebrations from players. Sort of you can sort of get momentum with scoring, and I've seen it with, I think Liverpool have been a perfect example of momentum with scoring. You've seen them one like being 1-1, then the next minute you're 3-1 down kind of thing. And if you can take that away by the sort of waiting for the VAR decision, where the crowd calms down, the players calm down, and then that momentum goes. So I think it does impact the game, but if you're getting to the right decision, it's probably the better overall outcome. So I think that one of the problems is decision making is still being wrong. And a prime example is the Arsenal Brentford game, where VAR, you could sort of say VAR's not the problem because it's the refs that have drawn the lines, for example. But when they've had to come out and apologise for you and still using VAR, that's a big problem, I think, in the game. You can't have them apologising after. But it's more of, do the refs need to be sort of, I don't know, trained more in the system, or does the system need to improve that doesn't allow them errors to come in? So I think it's sort of like one and the other, sort of both of them have got to both improve to make sure this is getting higher to a 100% correction, because it's not misinterpreting the rules, it's drawing a line wrong, and I think that's an issue in itself. Then I think probably the one thing that annoys probably most fans is it gets mentioned every single week. Every time you turn on BT, Sky Sports, listen to Talk Sport, other radio stations, other YouTube videos, they're talking about VAR, a VAR decision. And that's sort of something we may have moaned about refs' decisions before, but it was kind of like, it was, I think, smaller talking points than an overall VAR. I think VAR has increased that, and then that's going to put more pressure on the refs, and that's where decisions are going to be wrong.
Yeah. I think building on all those points, I mean, in terms of the negative side of things, I'll start with what you said about the fan experience. I don't think it's been a huge factor in that. I think if we look before VAR, say you score a goal and then it's ruled offside, that does dampen the experience where it's yay, oh, it's similar doing that. I think it does heighten the tension a little bit, like a build up to a penalty. When you're waiting for the penalty to be taken, there's that suspense waiting for the goal. So I don't think that's too bad. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to make sure the fan experience is the best, it's not going to work. No disrespect, but it's just not going to work, because otherwise you're focusing too much on that and you're actually going to forget about the football. So I think you have to make sure, as long as it's right, it doesn't matter. Yes, you might not cheer as loud, but as long as your team win, who really cares? I think building on that incident we said about the Brentford side of things, yeah, I get that. I appreciate the apology from referees to come out of that sometimes. It's brave enough to do that. I would like to see clubs actually apologise for some of the behaviour they show on the pitch, but they won't. And I think that's where the divide gets worse, because then it'll always be a ref that's accountable. But as far as I'm concerned with that Brentford decision, at the end of the day, Arsenal had 90 minutes to get the ball in the back of the net again, and they bottled it and conceded a goal. So as far as I'm concerned, they can stop moaning about that. They need to focus on how they performed on that day, and that wasn't good enough. I think from my perspective, I think what it takes out, and this is quite a strange, harsh way of saying it, is it takes out that element of luck in a game. I think how many times throughout the years before VAR, go back, watch your Premier League years, how many times you get that team that stays up because they get that goal they probably shouldn't have got? I think West Ham in 06, 07 did it, where there was a goal that went over the line or something like that, and it didn't count for Blackburn against West Ham. West Ham took that point and eventually went up to stay in the league that year. I know that's goal line technology, but you see what I mean. You might get that deflected goal or that offside goal you shouldn't have got, that maybe that handball that probably shouldn't have gone in. Yes, it shouldn't count, but I think sometimes those smaller teams or the teams struggling, that's what you need to get you out of that mess. So you can't rely on quality all the time. So I think what it might do is widen that gap a little bit more. It's going to make teams more tactical, much more improved, because they know they have to rely on their quality to win. But I think it might spread out that divide a little bit more between teams that might have the resources to improve their squads as much. They don't need to rely on luck. They have quality. But I think that's the only dampened side of it, that magic of, that one moment that kept you in the division, that one moment that won you the league. There's always elements like that. And I think that's probably the only factor I think I have that might take it away. But I don't think it's been a major issue so far.
It's a good point.
You'd probably have the counter argument, though, don't you, of if you're the team that goes down because of it, because of an unfair decision, something going wrong. So I think it does take it. It makes the game a bit more fairer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you shouldn't get luck to stay up, but reality, you do, don't you? You do.
You do, but it should be in different. It should be in different ways. Sort of like the ball gets a lucky deflection and goes in. It's different.
Yeah, the team that goes down because they've had enough to do it, but the technology has allowed them. Do you know what I mean? It is harsh, but yeah, I get what you mean. The complete counter argument.
But you're right though. At the end of the day, in theory, it just makes over 100 games, the team who is better will now win more times out of 100, which is probably more fair and probably correct. I think as well, to your point, Reece, big decisions. I can remember for Chelsea, two of the worst, probably the most controversial in Champions League. The ghost goal back in the day. I know that's goal line technology, not VAR, but like the stakes of some games to get wrong such a basic error. I mean, look, we're not the only club who's obviously had bad decisions, but that's quite a memorable one in such a high-profile game. And obviously, I still stand by this from my side, but the worst refereeing performance in the history of football against that, that Barcelona game.
I know what you're talking about. You got Drogba going, it's a disgrace or something like that, wasn't it?
So much so that the referee quit after that match. Pretty much says how bad that was. But games like that where it's I'm not just saying Champions League, but like the league and you've got to have these correct decisions being made right, because it's not just the I guess it is the club at stake, but like the finances involved in some of these games, like a playoff final, like £100 million match, or a Champions League semi-final. Like there's such big financial implications as well that have to get right.
Yeah, but the football's created that mess itself, hasn't it? This whole big financial stake side of things. They've created that mess themselves, the Premier League especially. I get your point. I think we're still in the early stages, aren't we? It can't be perfect. Everyone's expected to work straight away, and it can't, because next year they'll go, right, this didn't work, let's improve this. It will get better. And then the problem is that referees are trying to follow the rule to the book. They follow the rule to the book. Then they're getting moaned at for not giving leniency. As soon as they give leniency, they're moaning for not following the rule to the book.
Yeah.
So there should just be a split down the middle. Look, no leniency. This is the rules, whether you like it or not. As far as I'm concerned, If it's a handball, it's a handball. Yes, we might find it frustrating, but it is. Otherwise, we're just gonna. That's where the element of judgment comes in, and we're gonna go, yeah, but you didn't give it for him. It's what human beings do. It's for us. That's the thing that they just need to sort. Just stick to one rule, and where
The
that's
problem
like.
is
I think
they tried to do it, didn't they? They tried to do that with a handball, and it actually didn't work.
Yeah.
So now but this thing now we're moaning that they're when it's a handball we're going give the leniency, and now they're moaning again.
Yeah.
It just goes where they can't win, can they? If you want to, where do you draw the line on the leniency? Oh well, his kneecap's offside. It's still offside. Amount of managers who would still say that was still offside, but when it's done against them, it's I think we need a bit of leniency here. It's ridiculous. It's just accept that if it's a handball, it's a handball. Stop your player running around with his hands out. Then just stop it.
Yeah, the manager hypocrisy is probably one of the most hilarious.
It's not even just manager, is it? It's fans.
Yeah.
Everyone does. Everyone does it. Look at every social media going.
Flag thinks he can see it. Yeah, that's fine. You might be able to see it. You are sitting higher up, mate. I get it. But someone else sees something the other side of the pitch. It just goes to show how a lot of it is opinionated, isn't it?
So that's it. Can VAR actually ever win because everyone's so opinionated? And
absolutely
that's what it comes down to. But then, is it sort of, if we're trying to bring in something that's meant to, is it just to help, just to bring up the percentages of some better decisions?
It has improved the game, though. It has improved.
Because there are like obvious ones that I think I remember when it first sort of came in, everyone was so excited about this decision. I think it was Arsenal United, and offside was given. And if you looked, he was a good 3-4 yards onside. I think Arsenal went on and scored, or it might have been the other way around. I can't remember which way. They went on and scored, and it counted. And I think everyone got so excited because that was exactly the moment they wanted. That's exactly everything you wanted from it. A bad decision by the linesman, easily corrected, and no one could argue. That's it. But then when you get into these little details of handballs, like even with VAR in it, I still feel like when we played Tottenham, there was a handball that Llorente scored. I still will say it's handball. Spurs fans will still say it's not. And then on the day it was given as a goal. It's still going to be that opinion of fans. So this is where I think VAR and refs can't actually win, even though sort of like there's sort of rules to be followed. But I also think the rules are a lot of the problems that VAR have, because I think a lot of the fans don't know the exact rules because they change every year as well. So like you said with the handball, where they gave every handball that led to a goal was disallowed, even if it was completely accidental, even if it was sort of like hands by the side, it tapped someone's hand and then there's a goal like 10 seconds later, it would be disallowed. But now it's a bit more that would be allowed, for example. I think there's sort of got to be education to the fans, which I think would then stop. It's not going to end sort of at people's opinions, because opinions and people moaning is actually a part of football as a fan experience. It just is. You wouldn't have pundits if otherwise. So things like that have got to stay. But I think in certain rules, I think a handball rule is something that needs to be more explained to the fans before the season, to stop the sort of, I guess, abuse and the topic of VAR being wrong, even though they're doing it to the rules of the rule book.
I think that's a good point, actually, the fan education side. Not that anyone's going to listen anyway, to be honest. They could put it out everywhere.
I have seen they have tried it a bit in the past, but I don't think they pushed it enough.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, because I think you got people who won't watch it. There's going to be that. But if you keep pushing it a bit more, then I think it's going to help out the refs.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, I suppose, the element of time, and if they're allowed to do it, like if they put on the screen, when they say checking handball, but if they say why it's not been given or given, say, rule 1 states X, Y, Z. I know in the NFL they have the ref on the speaker.
Rugby, they have it as well, don't they?
Yeah, and he tells you what's going on. I don't think we need that. I think I think it's a good idea, yeah, just to maybe have it up and say, look, this was the rule that's been considered or is being applied. I'm not sure. Maybe you haven't got time to sit and have
No,
time.
I think that would
I
help, though.
think I think the rugby NFL sort of rule just going handball by number 10 on for the home team. Like if you're doing it like I think I've heard the NFL ones, they say like number 67 on the home team infringement sort of thing. But if you say handball above shoulder height handball, done. You don't have to go into too much detail.
Yeah.
I don't want just sort of like just go handball above shoulder height, unnatural position, penalty. Done. You've heard his decision. You've heard why, because there has been times where I think you've seen the decision been given, and you're still thinking, why has that been given? So I think that could help, and then that would, I think, because VAR, you've even got time with VAR though to make up, well, not make up, but tell sort of like people at VAR can be like, your decision's going to be this because of this number player, this team for this decision. So you've got the communication to tell you what rule you're going to say, and then that will help, I think. And
I
even
think,
yeah, go on.
No, go
I
on.
was going to say with decisions that they're not given as well, they can say not handball, not in an unnatural position, no penalty, done, move on.
Yeah, I think doing that would also give that more authority to the ref.
Yeah,
I think it's very hostile for us because they're confident, but they're being constantly surrounded, they're being constantly berated. But I think doing that would probably give them that sense of authority back. I think, you look at the days of what's his name? Is it Chilino, or something like that? I used to see him. He'd see a decision, handball, yellow card, penalty. No one would question it. And I think maybe having that authority would be a good idea. It'd be a bit awkward because if they get it wrong, then does it undermine them? I don't know, because the VAR might be like, well, you're wrong here. But I think
no. But I should think that should only be happening once the VAR decision happens.
Yeah.
So if they've gone and checked it, then do it. Don't be like foul. He's kicked him, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Don't need to worry about that. And it's not in the penalty area, kind of thing. We don't need it in that. Just the big decisions that VAR are involved with. I think that would help.
Yeah,
because that's the decisions that are reviewed, and they're under more scrutiny for reviewed ones than non-reviewed, because you can go, look, the ref couldn't see that because he had 3 bodies in the way, and it was just a free kick in a non-dangerous area. Where if it's a penalty, it gets reviewed. You've got multiple screens, multiple angles. You should be getting that decision right.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea of doing it. I think, yeah, you're right. You can say, look, as you can see from the ref's angle, he can't see that. Because they are just human beings. Like, unfortunately, we don't treat them like human beings. So we don't, do we? We don't. I think
we can hear what they're saying.
We've all been refs. We've all seen it.
The fans are never going to be happy whatever they do. They always think, every fan thinks their club is victimized. That referees are out to get them. I personally would argue, if a ref's out to get you, it's because there's a problem with you. It's probably because you are quite annoying. So
you might get it on a day where you've pissed off the ref so much, he's gone, you know what, that's a 50-50 decision, I'm not giving it you. That might happen, but I don't think there's any pre-game intention.
No, I mean, they're topics for another day, aren't they? How to clamp down on discipline and maybe a bit. I think overall it's improved the game. We can't argue it's not. The amount of decisions that have been made correct, no matter how harsh people want them to be. They've ruled the game and they've made sure that, in a way, the better team wins. There's no, if it is what it is, yes, you might get that goal ruled out when it shouldn't have done, but there's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be a factor. It's just a vicious cycle that they could bring in perfection. And they'll moan it's too perfect. They'll moan, oh, but our players are just human. We make mistakes. And it's like, this is what you wanted. The whole foul thing, players come in, cheat all the time. And as soon as it's done to them, can't believe he's doing this. It's a disgrace. You do it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole argument. So no matter what you're going to do, it could be perfect. And they're not going to be happy.
And in terms of solutions to obviously, the things we've discussed, I think one for the offside, the whole line drawing scenario, I think that's been pretty heavily exposed in the last couple of years. Like you need to be able to draw a straight line on a pitch, otherwise, everything you're looking at is just irrelevant. What I think the solution to that would be is I think it's called semi-automated offside, which we've seen in
World Cup, wasn't it?
World Cup, 100%. I can't recall if we saw it in partially in the
Champions League did as well. Yeah.
To be honest, I was pretty impressed with that, and I think what that does is I think it's partially using AI, but it does the lines automatically. I don't know the exact technology behind it, but
well, the Premier League have dismissed taking that on.
completely.
That's already been well for now, at least. At least it was discussed, and they've said no. I'll be honest, I don't know too much about it, but there has to be some drawbacks, because otherwise, from what I've seen in the World Cup, in the Champions League, there's been I don't remember any controversy about offsides in either of them tournaments. I know it's a smaller tournament, there's much more games in the Premier League, so they probably would show it. But if there's nothing wrong with it, and it looks like a better system than the line drawing that the refs are doing, why are we not using it? That's the only thing, and it can't be down to money, because the Premier League have got a ton of it. Like, if you just go to every Premier League team, we need 1 million from you all to implement this, and if it's costing more than that and it's not fully right, then I don't just wasting money. But I
don't think clubs will contribute to that, though. You know how clubs can be. I think
they. I think they would.
I think there needs to be a universal application, doesn't there? I do get frustrated at times when it's the whole, well, our rules are slightly different, or we've changed this different. I think, look, just all have the same, and then that way, then it's going to.
Yeah, FIFA should make the rules, and they are the rules of football. Really, that's how I see it. Forget what you think of FIFA, but that's the whole point of them. They're the governing body of the world football. They set the rules on how the game is played, for 11 aside, for 7 aside, 5 aside, blah, 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 whatever. That's how it's played professionally.
Yeah, if you want a knockout tournament, like your own knockout tournament.
Yeah, if you want a friendly sort of game, it doesn't matter, does it?
Fine. But your leagues and your European competition should all follow the same rules. Yeah, and therefore there should be funding along that ecosystem to accommodate that. But I'm not sure if that would be possible.
And then other decision, we touched on it briefly with refs and the decision. So one of my solutions, as we kind of said, is when they go to the VAR booth and they're talking in their little headset or they're going to the screen, can we just hear that? Obviously, the fans in the stadium are still none the wiser, but
commentators do. Because I remember I've heard Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville both have known the decision before the referee's given it, because they can hear the conversation, and they've admitted they've said we can hear the conversation.
Okay.
So that is possible to do, but for how long it could take, I don't think you want to hear a 2-3 minute conversation between refs in the VAR room and the ref on the pitch. You just want to find the final decision. If the decision's going to be 10 seconds, then fine. But if it's going to take numerous replays, it's a bit. Yeah, I don't want to hear that conversation.
Up to the commentators to relay the information back. Yeah, you don't want to hear them talking. And I think when you're in the stadium, you can see what's going on because the screen's telling you what they're checking. I think that's fine as the way it is. Otherwise, the ref will have to relay it to everybody, and if there's people that can't hear him, they'll have to bring a tannoy system in. If they can't, if the person in the back doesn't understand what he's saying, bring translators in. It's going to be too insane. So just commentators relay it back. That's told to everyone else. Okay, we know what's going on.
Yeah, but if you're saying already they've heard those conversations, I don't think they're doing it well enough at the minute. Because I've seen it in rugby. The rugby one's a perfect example. Obviously, they don't tend to take 2 or 3 minutes. It's quicker. No. But you get so much, and we've seen it. The difference in rugby. The respect for the referee. Obviously, I know they're mic'd up the whole time, so that's a bit different. But the respect for the referees in rugby is the complete and utter other end of the spectrum.
That's a culture we've created, and also They
Yeah,
get in rugby. I think if they argue with the ref, they have to go further back or something. So
there's
if
certain
you know,
but
I
there's
think
also a sin bin in rugby, and that can be sort of dissent and things like that, which obviously you're off for 10 minutes kind of thing. I don't think we want to bring football into that. I don't think we don't want ideally we want 11 versus 11 all the time.
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, yellows and reds are fine. If you just chuck people in a sin bin, it's not going to solve anything, is it? Because they'll tactically use that sin bin. Let's go get our best player 5 minutes rest.
Yeah, could do.
It's
But then
pointless.
you're down to 10 men, aren't you? But it's something that I don't want to see, but it's something that if we're going to talk about refs and respect for the refs and the surrounding and stuff, it's definitely something you have to consider, because rugby's in a better position in that aspect than football. But I feel like with the whole decisions, I think we only need to hear the final decision, and the commentators can hear it and relay what they think is relevant, so they don't need to hear the whole conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Well, look, let's conclude each with the ultimate decision. Do we want to see, VAR's continued use, or would we rather go back to the old school ways, with less screens, I guess? Reese, we'll start with you. Yes or no to VAR moving forward?
Yes, keep it, but it'll never be perfect.
Jamie?
Yeah, keep it, but it's just got to. I think we've just got to keep improving. Sort of like, don't stand still with it. Don't just think, oh, it's fine as it is. Got to keep improving it. It's not going to be perfection, but you can keep improving it. Get refs more and more, sort of like knowledge on it, and I think that will improve the overall experience of VAR.
Yeah, I agree. So we're all on the same page for once, which is good. So similar to your point, Jamie, I think we have to keep it, but you have to continually improve it, because it isn't, Reese, as you said, it's not perfect, but it can get closer to perfect. And it's just a maths game. You got to get it up to, the 97, as we said, it might not be right, but 97 to 99. There'll always be the debate, though. That's the bottom line. This is why we have a podcast as well. There'll always be
Yeah,
disagreements
we
and
wouldn't have a
debates in
podcast
football.
if there's no debate,
Exactly.
would we?
Pundits would be out of a job. Podcasters would. But yeah, that wraps us up for this episode. As always, it's a contentious debate. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.